The perfect society seems almost incomprehensible. I mean, could this even be possible? Think of your own 21st century society. What is it like compared to the plethora of governments and peoples across our floating rock? How is it better? How is it worse? Are you satisfied with it? What would you change? Would you give up your personal freedoms for other benefits? Could people really unite under one rule? Really question yourself. Do you notice any personal bias creeping in? Are you rational with your thinking? These aren't just questions for you, they're questions I've asked myself. And when you're chilling alone on that late night, 3 a.m., seriously trying to understand the world, constantly questioning, that's when you truly start rational thought. This is a mindset that I picked up from none other than the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. As a quick rundown, Plato was basically Socrates' student, and he wrote down a lot of their conversations so people like us could read them thousands of years later. He also started the first version of a university called the Academy way back in ancient Athens. This all happened around 400 BC, over 2 millennia ago. He recorded numerous teachings of Socrates which survived and are considered the foundation of Western philosophy. Of those, one of the longest and most famous is The Republic, a 400-page deep dive exploring justice, like the definition of justice and what it means at its core, the nature of the good and the role of the philosopher at that time in society. Invertedly, the perfect society is hypothesized through pursuing these ideas and forms. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nostalgia. This is my first video on this channel, so welcome. I have made 2 videos on another channel. One of them covered this topic, but I wanted to start this one up for posting instead, start fresh. Also, I got a new rig, so it's much more tolerable to make a video. Don't expect anything crazy, though, because I am still pretty lazy, but I am redoing everything in terms of explanation, so there's more substance in the video. And hopefully you take something away or go out yourself and read or research The Republic. As a disclaimer, I'm not a self-proclaimed philosopher or academic. I'm just a dude who accidentally found this great work when I was looking up the oldest literature ever written. This is already a long intro though, so alright, if you're still with me, thank you. I'm excited to get into this and hopefully put out something that does The Republic justice. See what I did there? Alright, so book 1 sets the stage for everything that follows, right? Quick note, Plato is the author, but he's not a character in the story. Socrates is straight front and center. The scene opens with Socrates and a friend walking back to town after the festival. Behind them, Polemarchus, I might be butchering these names, but sorry. Another friend spots them and sends a slave to ask Socrates to wait up. When they catch up, Polemarchus invites him to his dad's house, Cephalus' house, where a few more people are hanging out. There's more of the festival happening later, so they might as well spend some time contemplating things, right? Naturally, how could Socrates say no? Alright. So they head to the house, settle into a room, and that's where the entire rest of the Republic takes place. That's when I had this moment, whoa. I remember having to write Socratic arguments back in school and thinking they weren't that effective, but this is Socratic argument at its highest level, and it's really compelling. No wonder people used to get frustrated with Socrates. He just listens, keeps questioning, and somehow walks people into saying things they actually believe. You've got to read it for yourself to see how he does it. Anyways, they start talking about justice, and early on, Thrasymachus drops a bold claim. Justice is just the will of the stronger. That's the first major provocation. Now, in book 2, they keep digging into the idea of justice, but things start getting deeper. What's interesting is that even the people giving arguments against justice still want Socrates to break those arguments down. It's like they don't want to believe that justice is fake or meaningless. They want to believe it's noble, but they need proof, or they just inherently know it's noble. This is where the real philosophy kicks in, right? Nobody can clearly define what justice is, but they're starting to realize it must be something that matters both for itself and for its consequences. That distinction becomes huge later. Also in book 2, you start getting hit with metaphors that feel weirdly modern, a theme that runs throughout the Republic. The first big one is the Ring of Aegis. It's basically an ancient version of a superpower. What if you had a ring that made you invisible, letting you get away with anything? What would you do? Would you lock it away or use it? Does restraint from using it make you just, or does using it prove you're unjust? It's the same kind of question people ask today. If no one's watching, what would you really do? We still haven't identified justice, but this shows that people can still recognize it, or at least wrestle with it. That's crucial because now we leave the individual and step into something almost mythical. Here we go. The Republic itself, the perfectly just society. If we can't figure out what justice looks like in a single person, maybe it'll be easier to find in a city built from scratch. This city, however, is ruled by philosopher kings, not just one but a group, and defended by the famous or infamous guardians who are trained to care for both parts of themselves, the body and the soul. These rulers are philosophers because through Socrates' earlier arguments, it becomes clear that wisdom is the most just trait of all. So naturally, those who love wisdom, the philosophers, should be in charge, right? Immediately, the Republic starts to feel more rigid than the kind of society you might be used to, especially if you live in a country like the United States like I do. The Guardians receive a carefully designed education in music and poetry, which included math and harmony inside poetry. They refer to it as poetry sometimes, and are physically trained to serve as the militaristic defenders of a city that by design will never expand. It will remain one perfect single polis, or city-state, you know. And here's where it gets even more intense. Education is strictly controlled. This is book 3, by the way. Censorship isn't just allowed, it's considered necessary. Any literature or music that promotes immoral behavior gets cut, even if it's by someone as iconic as Homer. Socrates specifically calls out the Iliad multiple times, pointing out how the gods in it behave impulsively, immorally, and often without reason, hurting each other or humans for petty causes. These stories, he argues, corrupt the soul. That actually inspired me to read the Iliad myself, actually right after this book I did, and I'll say this, it was absolutely amazing, and I'll probably do a video on it. But yeah, you do find yourself picking sides in your head, getting frustrated at some of the gods, and even the main characters. Sorry, I got carried away for a second. Anyways, I used to think censorship sounded extreme, but it's a rational concern. Stories do shape us. Kids are malleable, their brains are malleable. People grow up echoing beliefs and values that they were surrounded by, whether good or bad, especially from parents. If the best people really are in charge, though, if the guardians are truly wise and good, shouldn't they be the ones deciding what gets passed on through education? Some would say that's a huge limit on freedom, but what is freedom really? Is it just a word we throw around now? We'll come back to that when we get to book 8, which may be in a part 2. Now here's where things get super controversial, and yeah, even I wrestle with this one, I'll admit it. Noble lies. Socrates suggests that some lies are necessary to hold the city together. The most famous of these is the myth of the metals, which says that all citizens are born from the earth, but have different types of metal mixed into their souls, gold, silver, bronze, or iron. Those with gold are destined to rule, silver to guard, and bronze or iron to producer and work. The point isn't to trap people in a class. Plato actually allows movement between them, but to convince everyone that the rule in the city is natural and divinely ordered. It's a unifying law meant to promote harmony. It doesn't really sound like it could work, but then again, remember, we're building the perfect society just for the discussion of finding justice. But honestly, isn't that better than the kinds of lies we're told to divide us? Alright, going into book 4, Socrates finally gives us his definition of justice in book 4. It's internal harmony in the city, which reflects internal harmony within the soul. Now, the soul is split into 3 parts here, and see if you agree with this breakdown. Appetite, which covers our animalistic and material cravings like hunger, wealth, approval, lust. Spirit, which governs courage, honor, love, and emotional drive. And lastly, rationality, the oddball of the group. Rationality is hard to describe, but you kind of just know what it is when you feel it. It's the part of the soul that seeks truth through wisdom, which comes from knowledge, which is built from thought, and all that begins by turning your attention outward through vision, and inward through reflection. That's actually the whole point of Plato's theory of forms. We remember truths like this rather than learning them. I think of the rational part as trying to manage the appetite and spirited parts to make sure your interpretation of reality aligns with what's actually true. In the city, philosopher kings represent reason, guardians or auxiliaries represent spirit, and producers represent appetite. This works because if the people in the city are educated the right way, they'll all accept that reason should rule, spirit should support it, and appetite should obey, just like it should within yourself. And here's the key, it has to be voluntary. No part of the soul should be violently suppressed. Temperance means all the parts agree on who's in charge. Without that agreement, you get internal conflict, the soul at war with itself. That's injustice. I hope this is getting you thinking, and as we move forward, try to apply this structure to yourself and the world around you. Like, where do you see appetite, spirit, and reason actually playing out, and which part seems to be ruling? This was a dense chapter, not an easy one. Honestly, the only simple part of the Republic is book 1, and even that's mostly because we haven't gotten into the heavy philosophy yet. The language in this text is strange. It's not like the Iliad, which somehow still holds up as a story. This is like a mix of academic thesis and dramatic dialogue. But not a lot of people talk about the shift that happens right here. We've defined justice, and now Plato shifts from the initial goal, not abandoning it, but using it to develop more ideas. I'll briefly go over book 5 next, but even for me, it feels a little out of place. Don't get me wrong, these are good ideas coming, but from this point on, we're not chasing justice anymore, we're using it to chase something else. Alright, jumping into book 5, this is where the Republic throws out some of its most controversial ideas. It's actually kind of funny. It feels like Plato knew he had to build the rapport in books 1 through 4 just to drop these out of nowhere proposals. As we go through this, ask yourself, are these thoughts radical? Are they rational? Could any of this work in today's world? And who, if anyone, might already be close to it? Let's start with the Philosopher King. We already know from earlier books that they're supposed to rule because they pursue truth and knowledge. They're wise, rational, and trained to lead. But here Plato specifies that they shouldn't rule until they're about 50 years old, after a lifetime of education, dialectical training, and public service. Now, when Plato says philosopher, keep in mind that meant something very different back then. Ancient philosophers were basically what we now call scientists, poets, mathematicians, mystics. and social critics all rolled into one. They weren't just stuck in abstract thought. These people trained in music, physical health, geometry, astronomy, and logic. I mean, just look at the statues of Plato and Socrates. They're like ripped. I don't think that's like a accurate representation. Like, they just made great people ripped, but they talk about, exercising in the book. But anyways, there were polymaths, and Plato expected his rulers to be the most complete, wise humans possible. Even by today's standards, they'd be considered way above average. I know they were talking in the book, they were way above me, even in terms of math. But most of that is just reinforcing what we already heard. The Guardians, on the other hand, are where things start to get really weird. While movement between classes is technically allowed, a producer can rise to a ruler, or a Guardian can choose to step down. The lifestyle of the Guardian class is completely different. For one, they live communally. That means shared training halls, schools, sleeping quarters, food, bathrooms, everything. As children, they're even sent away from the city for 2 years to live on farms and experience hardship. The nuclear family is abolished. That probably sounds wild, but it mirrors Spartan society, which was admired in some ways for its discipline and unity. Especially with the children. Like, the children in Spartan society would, as I recall, be forced to steal and stuff and experience hardship. They would get beatings from any Spartan male citizen, adult male citizen, and that's just how it was. Is not very nuclear family oriented. Getting back to it, women could become guardians too, and all elders are called mother or father, while peers are brother and sister. Family becomes symbolic and civic, not biological. If that interests you, go read book 5. It gets into way more detail about how these roles function, but I'll have to keep it brief here because this video is already pushing. They're already pushing like 19 minutes. Now for the real controversy. Not only is the nuclear family abolished, but no one knows who their real parents or children are. Kids are taken away at birth and raised communally, so everyone in the Guardian class truly sees each other as part of one family. And then it gets worse. Mating is assigned, supposedly, by lottery. Then it gets even worse. The lottery is rigged. The rulers fix the outcomes to encourage better genetics. It's basically unnatural natural selection, selective breeding for civic harmony. Yeah, this is the part that makes people compare Plato's Republic to a dystopia. Some say the Guardians live like drones, others, including me to a degree, would call it utilitarian to the extreme. It's not about happiness, but harmony and function. I can kind of understand the logic if the people involved actually believe in it, especially since anyone can step down from the Guardian class and live as a producer if they want a more private, personal life. And that's pretty much the gist of it, folks. Like I said earlier, the book goes into more detail than I can cover here. This is a natural place to stop. The building of the perfect society ends here. From this point on, Plato uses it as a springboard to explore other concepts. So what do you think? Do you agree with Plato? What sounds reasonable, and what sounds like it crosses a line? Personally, I agree with more of it than I thought I would, or at least I can see the reasoning behind it. I think it could work in theory if people were truly rational and committed to the idea, but even Plato knew this society would probably never exist. He wasn't saying this is the country we should build. He was saying this is a model for the soul, a mirror, a thought experiment. A lot of people write it off as delusional or dangerous, You can find plenty of videos or articles calling it a blueprint for tyranny, and I get that, but I also think they're missing the deeper point. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I made this because I think Plato's view of existence is surprisingly peaceful, almost like secular Buddhism. It gives you a way to reflect on abstract forms like love, beauty, and justice as eternal truths, not passing trends. He challenges you to build a world inside yourself, not wait for it to show up around you. So yeah, become your own ruler through wisdom, humility, and temperance. And I'll leave you with this, one of my favorite quotes from the end of Book 9, where Socrates saying Glaucon, I think that's what, I feel bad if I'm saying that wrong, are talking about the philosopher's role in the real world. Socrates starts, heal, the philosopher king, be quite prepared to go into politics in the city which is his own. But in his native country, barring some heaven-sent piece of good fortune, perhaps not. I see, he said. You mean in the city we have just been founding and describing, our hypothetical city, since I don't think it exists anywhere on earth. No. Though there may perhaps be a pattern or model laid up in heaven somewhere, for anyone who chooses to see it, and seeing it, chooses to found a city within himself. It makes no difference whether it exists anywhere, or ever will. It, and no other, is the only city whose politics he would engage in. Very likely, Glaucon said.